Good morning, all you wonderful people. If you're alive and well and you know it, let me hear you say, yeah.
Yeah!
Oh, yeah, like that. No Walking Dead here. So glad to see you, so glad to hear you, and so glad to be here with you. I appreciate that. Remember that, as James was saying, the theme of the month is enjoyment, which means to bring the joy into. Enjoy means to bring the joy into whatever it is you're doing. And I want to share with you that when I was 29 years old, not all that long ago, one of the most enjoyable things in my life happened to me. No, it's not the day I lost my virginity. That happened the year before. No, on November 7th, 1980, my one and only child was born. And I had the joy and the privilege of helping this new little life form change from one world into another. And as I was welcoming him into the world of man, he was looking at me with these eyes that seemed to just be scrutinizing me, as though he's kind of wondering, have I chosen well in making this man to be my dad? And when I drove him home, it was like I'm driving on eggshells. Can anybody relate? You know? And I slept with him the first night in my arms so that his mom could have a well-deserved rest. And when I used to come home from singing at night, my gift was to sit in a soft rocking chair with my infant son right here. And his little body would mold to mine. And he'd give me the blessing of absolute perfect peace. And I remember when we almost lost him, when he was 3 months old and he got pneumonia. And he was in the ICU for a week in a plastic oxygen tent with IVs in his little arms and legs. And we didn't sleep for 6 months after that because one of us would always be up checking to make sure that he was breathing while he was asleep. And I remember several months later when he was finally walking, and I came in one day and surprised him. He was in the little hallway as I entered, and he was able to hold a toy in each hand at that time. And he sees me, and then he looks at his toys, and he sees me, and all of a sudden he goes, boom! And I knew that he owned my heart forever. Happy Dad's Day. I'm going to start a movement to change Father's Day to Dad's Day because I've long come to the understanding that any healthy male with the right opportunity can be a father. But it takes a man with something special to be a dad. What is a dad? A dad is that guy who's, when he's told, guess what, honey? Says, yes. Absolutely. A dad is that guy who goes and sits on a Saturday afternoon in a hot auditorium to watch his child's first dance recital and likes it. A dad is a guy who moves his family to the Inland Empire because that's the only place where he can afford to buy a house. And then he commutes 2 hours or more each way to work his 8-hour job 6 days a week, plus overtime when he can get it. A dad is the guy who coaches his son's T-ball league and K-League soccer and takes him to karate and thinks it's fun. A dad is my friend from college, Gil Bianis, who, while a student at UCLA, was also a working man, was also a radio host at KPFK, and a single dad to 5 kids. And he always had a smile on his face. A dad is sometimes 2 dads, and sometimes 2 moms who are willing to play the role of dad. Or the single mom who steps in and does that job because that's exactly what she has to do. And this is a tribute to that first hero that most children ever get to meet. The one that picks them up so easily and so effortlessly and holds them close and helps them to feel safe, not knowing how scared and unsure of himself he actually is. The guy who gets up and goes to work even though he's sick and in pain and does it anyway, because that's what dads do. A dad is those fathers of the people who were killed in Orlando and didn't care what their sexual orientation was. That was my child, that was my son, that was my daughter, that was my baby. And they're hurting and they're in pain because that's what dads do. And so I lift my spiritual cup, and I invite you, if you will, to stand and lift yours in honor of dads. That guy who's done it, who's been there for you. And you know what? It's that guy whose energy is right here, right now, who knows the joy of being dad. And I'm going to read, and feel free to lower your arms now. I'm going to read this because I hate to see you here and then dropping it. But if you have your cards, please feel free to get them out. And remember that dad is the enjoyment of bringing life into the world and developing that life. I step into the joy of life and live it up. If you repeat that with me, I step into the joy of life and live it up. I step into the joy of life and live it up, because dad is that joy of life. And that joy of life is that energy that exists right here and right now. Feel free to sit if you'd like to. It is that energy of dadness, that energy of love, that energy of unconditional acceptance, that energy of giving and giving and giving, and not always receiving, and yet receiving, because there it is. There's my child. Dad is the energy that exists right here, right now, in this room. Dad is the people that went to Guatemala to be dads for the period that they were there, for the children who may never have ever known the beauty of having a dad. And they get to have that, if only for a week. Dad is everyone right here, right now, regardless of gender, regardless of being male or female, because dad is the energy of love that says, I love a child. Dad is that energy that will always protect a child from any harm. And so the spirit of dad that exists in me recognizes and honors the spirit of dad that exists in you. Namaste, Dad. And with that recognition, I'm so grateful to you and the dadness that is in you, the glory of dadness that is in you. And I'm grateful for you. And I thank you. And I wish and I hope that you will enjoy this wonderful day that's dedicated to you, Dad. And I release this word, knowing that it is so, knowing that it is law, knowing that it is done, as together we all say, and so it is. Namaste.
We made it this far. He said, do you really think jumping 40 feet down into a shallow pool of water is the best way to end this trip? And she was like, yes. And she just jumped and came back up and said, Dad, come on.